Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the Neca Nosferatu, a Symphony of Horror Ultimate Action Figure. Nosferatu is from a 1922 German silent film, and it basically ripped off Dracula, and the people that made the movie ended up being sued. The movie was destroyed, but you can actually watch it nowadays. Nosferatu is in public domain. Nobody actually owns the rights to him anymore, and that's probably why this figure is coming out. I would say it's part of NECA's Universal Monsters line, but that's not the case. It has nothing to do with Universal. Either way, it's a pretty cool horror icon, so let's take a look at the packaging. And I got this thing at the Target app. It's probably still in stock right now. So, starting off with his face, it's that creepy look, pale skin, pointy ears. He's an older vampire. Nosferatu, a Symphony of Horror Ultimate Action Figure. Here's the front of the package. Here's the side, reaching out for you. Other side, he's got his hat, hands together. On the back, you can see a ton of different display options and accessories. At the bottom, we have a barcode, in case that helps anybody. And this is one of NECA's Ultimate figures. You can hear the Velcro window box packaging on the inside flap. Here he is standing there, and then here's the figure with all of his accessories. So with no further ado, let's open him up. All right. Now that this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He comes with 6 alternate hands, totaling 8 interchangeable hands, 3 heads, a hat, a piece of paper, a bottle, some keys, an inkwell, and then a quill, which is a feather pen. Before we take a look at that, let's talk about and check out the figure. So this is Nosferatu. It's basically an imitation Dracula. The Dracula story was written in the late 1800s, and this movie came out as a silent film in 1922. I believe the author or somebody representing the Dracula book sued, and they actually won, and the courts ordered all copies of this movie destroyed. I believe you can watch this movie for free online pretty easily nowadays. Black and white silent film. Nosferatu came out in 1922, and I believe as of 2022, 100 years later, it went to public domain, meaning that NECA or anybody else can make figures of Nosferatu and not have to pay any licensing fees. He's sort of the original vampire to a point. From what I'm told, this is the original story of Dracula, more or less how he was supposed to look and act. And they sort of romanticized him, made him this rich guy in a castle, etc. So let's take a look. Starting with his face here, it looks creepy. It's pale. He's got the pointed ears, giant bushy eyebrows, and a little bit of hair above the ears. His eyes kind of have a reddish tint to them. He's got long, exaggerated fingernails. Can't quite tell if there are fangs there, but I'm going to go with a yes on that. He's got the brown coat. Looks like single-jointed elbows, single-jointed knees, dress shoes. As a whole, he looks good. I imagine there's going to be a black and white version, and that's going to be probably a little bit more what we're all familiar with looking for with Nosferatu. I'll tell you, as a whole, he looks a little bit goofy, I hate to say it. He looks like a 7-inch version of the Toony Terror Nosferatu, and that is no compliment. I don't know, just something about his face looks quite a bit off compared to what I would expect. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt, definitely weird and creepy to say the least. And here's the figure, broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's check out his accessories, and let's start off with his hands. He has a total of 8 hands, 5 right hands, and 3 left hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These hands are semi-open, look like could be some creepy hands clawing at you. Here's the second pair of hands. This is a pair of gripping hands with some pretty small grips. Here's another right hand that he has. This is a gripping hand with a little bit of a larger grip. And he has another alternate right hand. This one's a gripping hand with a very large grip. And here's his final pair of hands. This is a pair of creepy hands with really long fingernails. Now let's look at his heads. He has 3 of them. One with a fairly normal expression, one with a kind of heavy smiling expression, and one with an angry or possibly sad expression. Here he is with his first head. This one has the most normal of the 3 expressions. And then his second head. This one has a sort of half smile going on, and then his eyes have some side eyes going to the left. And here's his final expression. This one has a sort of angry or sad look. Even his ears are pushed back onto his head. Now let's look at his hat. His hat's done in black. It's that sort of unique style. Definitely old school. Made of a very rubbery material. It's a nice amount of give to it. Here he is, without the hat on, and then with the hat on. Now you have to use this sort of serious or sad head because the ears are tucked against him, and that allows the hat to fit on his head. Now let's look at his keys. He's got a bunch of sort of old school larger keys on this big chain. Looks like he's got about 6 of them on here. Here's Nosferatu holding those keys. Now for his bottle, inkwell, and quill. Now, I am kind of guessing this is a bottle full of ink, although I don't really know, but it definitely doesn't look like a traditional drinking bottle. It's done all black and has a very unique shape to it. Then we have his inkwell. It's basically like a little cup, and it has a hole in the top where you can dip the feather pen in and re-ink it. Then we have the actual feather pen, known as a quill. He also has this piece of paper where he's obviously been using his ink pen. Now, I must admit, I can't really make out anything on here. I don't think any of it's in English. And it continues on to the back side. Here's a look at Nosferatu, sitting in his chair, writing his memoirs, his story. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, now for his height. From bottom to the top of his head, staying at about 7.5 inches tall, which can translate to 19 centimeters. And now for his articulation. Starting with his head, of course, you can rotate from side to side. You can look up about that far, down a very good amount. He seems to have articulation both the top of the neck and the bottom of the neck. You can tilt his head from one side to the other, at least a little bit. Shoulders on a ball joint goes out 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. Single jointed elbow goes in more than 90 degrees with rotation. His wrist here can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. His torso seems to be one solid piece. He's got this sort of soft goods coat on top of everything. He's got a ball joint in his waist. Rotate around, forward and back. And it does feel like maybe he has another point of articulation here. I can kind of see him crunching down, but you're not really going to get a lot of use out of that. It's not going to stick in the poses. Now, his coat has sort of a slit in the back. Can allow for at least some articulation with the legs. They can go out about that far. They are ball joints inside of here. Can rotate independently of the ball. They go forward, really not very much. This coat is really obstructing that. Back, about that far. Single jointed knee with rotation. Then his ankle, forward and back, tiny spit. Tilt rock, and rotation. Here's Nosferatu, looking very creepy with his side-eye pose. Here he is with those long fingernails, like he's about to attack you. Maybe he's hungry for blood. And then here he is, writing at his favorite table. Maybe he's writing the story of Dracula. Now let's check him out, next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Neca horror figures. Here's Nosferatu, next to a Neca Universal Monsters Dracula figure. Nosferatu is based off the original Dracula book. So far, Neca's made 3 different versions of this Dracula figure. Black and white, original color, and then the Loot Crate Burger King variant. There's also a glow-in-the-dark one coming in the near future. Here he is, next to some of the earlier Neca Universal Monster figures. Frankenstein, Wolfman, the Mummy, and Dracula. Then, with some of the more recent ones, such as Bride of Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, Phantom, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Then, with some more recent Neca horror icons, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Leatherface, and Pinhead. Here he is, next to the Count. This is a Neca Monsters figure and a fellow vampire. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a Neca toy, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work my smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of his Neca brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from Neca toys, all 7-inch scale. And now, with some Jack-specific wrestling figures, and some DST or Diamond Select toys. And next, here he is with a stick of deodorant. Here's Nosferatu next to some McFarlane toys and some DC Direct figures. And here he is with both some Mattel and Jazzwares wrestling figures, then with some Mezco and Mattel DC figures, and now with some Mafex and Hasbro Marvel Legends, and finally next to some SH figure arts and some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, the figure's cool, but it looks kind of goofy. Maybe it's because he's not done in black and white, it just doesn't look as creepy as I think it should. Something just about the face, specifically this head. I can't quite even put my finger on it, but just something looks a little just cartoony, goofy, and off. He should be a very creepy looking motherfucker. Still, it is a nice figure. The accessories are pretty cool. Articulation, it's actually more limited than I expected, especially with the legs. That coat just really obstructs the torso articulation and the leg articulation. Sculpt and paint job, I mean, they're excellent for what they are, but something just looks off about him. I can't even quite put my finger on it, but there's something about his face just looks cartoonish, and I don't like that for this guy. If I were to rate this guy, I'd probably give him a 6.5 out of 10. I want to give him a higher rating, but just something's off about him. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.